I got three things. No surprise, I think in
Oh,
three.
no, because you're thinking what?
Episode, I think in threes. How about that? Three things.
Your
so
show,
is,
it should be called Three Things.
It is. I dropped it already. It's called Three Things. You can find it at Mr. David Johns across platforms at NBJC on the Move. Literally called Three Things.
Three things.
Speaking into existence. So the first is the Olympic Games will begin soon. And interestingly enough, there will be no attendees, spectators, because of the novel coronavirus. And so I think a lot about two things that are happening. One, there are so many public examples of the ways in which the bodies of Black people, Black women in particular, are policed. And there are a number of female athletes who, because of the ways that their bodies produce chromosomes and testosterone and estrogen, have been not allowed to participate in races that they have earned spots in. So did an episode about it, I think 2 weeks ago, encouraged people to find more information. But as legislative officials are creating solutions to problems in terms of legislation banning trans girls from sports, women and girls from sports, there's an actual problem with the way that rules have been designed that are impacting cisgendered heterosexual women that should allow for us to have a more meaningful conversation about all of this. And so I want to highlight that that's going on. The second thing related to that is the Delta variant of the coronavirus and the increase in both states that are reinstituting mandatory masks and other social distancing policies, as well as the fact that the most likely amongst us to be unvaccinated are Black folks, are Black LGBTQIA plus folks, Black folks with disabilities, Black folks who fall into the Medicare donut and all of that. And so I'm hyper concerned about what the balance of this year might look like for our communities with regard to health. And I think that there are opportunities for medical and scientific professionals who know better than I do about the current state of medicine and scientific options to be able to talk about it and not only talk about what those things are, but to also talk about it in the context of the justified medical distrust that folks have, not only about institutions generally, but about the CDC more specifically. For folks who might not be paying attention in California, there's a case of a man named Ed Buck, who is a white former political donor who preyed upon poor, housing insecure, often sex workers. And what we know is that he has a penchant for drugging and engaging in sex acts with these men, often Black, gay, same-gender loving men. And we know that 2 Black men have died in his care in his home. I will never forget, and for anyone who's interested, Jasmine Canick, who was a founding member of NBJC, has single-handedly committed to ensuring accountability in this case. She's following it. I encourage you all to follow her and support her work. But Jasmine shared early on a journal entry from Jamel, who died, was murdered. Death was facilitated by Ed Buck. And Jamel talked about the first time that Ed Buck had given him crystal meth. And he wrote about fearing for his physical safety, his mental health, and his well-being. And what I think most about is that, again, none of this is new. The ways in which white men have been able to leverage their power, their privilege, and their money to engage in unequitable and unequal relationships, if we want to call them that, with Black men has always existed. The fact that there are institutions and policies that protect them is a thing that incenses me so. And so my hope is that while we're dealing with everything else that we've talked about and all of the stuff on the docket that we didn't get to, that there is continued attention paid to decriminalizing sex work and to otherwise providing not only housing security, but necessary medical and mental health support to members of our community who are most likely to find themselves vulnerable. And in those kinds of situations, again, no judgment for folks who engage in sex work. It is not forced and they so choose to do so. Folks should just have options and be safe as they otherwise move around. And then the last thing we mentioned is DACA. It bothers me, for lack of a more thoughtful word in this moment, that there's a single judge who has now found DACA to be unconstitutional, putting in limbo the life outcomes and opportunities of so many students who have applied for DACA and have done the things that our government has said they need to do, having been brought to this country and grown up in this country. Period. I was going to say to no fault of their own, but I'm then playing into this Republican narrative that suggests that they don't need to be here, which is problematic and just goes back to how all of this is framed. And we need to have more conversations about comprehensive immigration reform.
Yeah.
That, of course, I don't think will rise to the level of being a priority in this legislative session, but we have an obligation to do something to figure out the lives of children who are impacted by this decision and need resolution today.